Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maggie and in today's video I'll take you along with me as I try to recreate an 1890s corset from an original Symington pattern. So of course the first thing I did was to download that Symington pattern, and here it is. And the next thing I need to do is to actually scale it up to my size. Also, for this corset I'm going to be using zip ties again. If you've been following my channel for quite a while now, you might know that I already attempted a zip tie corset before. That one didn't turn out that great, but was still okay. But today we're finally going to do it the proper way. So let's get started. So first of all, I found my pattern, printed it, and then resized it to my actual body size. And I used a 21-inch waist as a guide measurement. My waist is not 21 inches, but when you're making a corset you want to plan in a 2 to 3 inch gap at the back, as well as a 2-inch waist reduction. So if you take your original waist measurement and subtract the gap and the reduction you want to achieve with your corset, you will get a smaller number, and in my case that's 21 inches. So I resized my entire pattern to fit a waist of 21 inches, and then I went ahead and cut the whole thing out of the fabric. So of course I started with the lining, and I'm just going to use some regular leftover cotton fabric for this. And for the outer layer I'm actually going to use a satin. I also still had this in my stash, so I literally had to purchase nothing but the zip ties and the busk for this corset, and here I am just cutting everything out of the fabric. Once I've cut out everything, I'm going to baste my lining and my outer fabric layers together, as I'm going to be flat lining this corset. This means that I will be treating the lining and the outer fabric as one layer, so nothing can shift during construction. Once I've basted all of my lining pieces together, except for obviously the front and the back panels, as I will not be flat lining these, they need to stay open so I can insert the busk and the eyelet holes. I'm going to be sewing my pieces together wrong side together this time, not right side, as we want to have the seams on the outside of the corset. Weird, I know. But apparently it was a thing to do this, as the raw edges that way would be on the outside and could be hidden by boning channels, while on the inside you had a nice and smooth finished garment. The hip panel and the other panels will not be sewed together wrong sides facing. This one will actually be sewn the regular way with right sides together, as in this case we actually want the raw edge to go on the inside, as obviously you don't want any raw edges on the outside going horizontally, as you don't have any bones in that direction. I also corded the hip panels. Apparently that was done in this specific model. So I just sewed a couple of boning channels across the top of the hip panel and inserted a strong cotton crochet wool, I believe, which I also still had left over. And apparently this video is turning into a list of things I still had in my stash. So yes, the cotton was part of my stash. For the back panel, I sewed the center back together. For the back panel, I sewed lining and outer fabric together at the center back, right sides facing, and then understitched to make sure that everything would stay in place. Now it's time to insert the busk, which is very exciting since I've never done this before. But I just marked where the busk, where the fastenings of the busk would have to go, and then sewed down the center front, connecting lining and outer fabric, right sides facing, once again, leaving gaps where the busk fastenings were supposed to go. I then inserted the busk and sewed around the edge using a zipper foot to make sure everything stays in place. For the other side of the busk, I marked where the knobs should go and then sewed down the center front, right sides facing without leaving gaps this time, and then marked where the knobs of the busk should go and cut those out. Once again, I sewed around the busk to hold everything in place. Now we're back to sewing with wrong sides facing, so I attached the front panel to the side panel, so the seam allowance ended up on the outside. Next, I attached the boning channels, sewing down each side and down the middle of each channel to create a double channel, which took quite some time since there were so many channels to sew on. After that, I inserted a zip tie in each, which at times was pretty difficult, where a channel had ended up being a bit too narrow, but overall I managed about fine. Then I marked evenly spaced eyelets on the back of my corset and secured them in place using a buttonhole stitch, since I didn't have any metal grommets. This will not make the corset as strong, but I don't mean to tight lace it anyway. The zip ties needed to be trimmed at the top and bottom to fit the actual width of the corset. Then I sewed a strip of binding to both the upper and lower edge of the corset to hide the raw edges and prevent the zip ties from poking through. Now for the fun part, the flossing. I decided to go with a floral design with both red and pink flowers on the bottom edge of the corset and just the red and pink flossing on the top. So here I am wearing a Victorian shift that I made a while ago. You might have seen it in some of my previous dressing up videos. And now let's just put on the corset on top. So here we have the corset finished and laced up already. And I got the split busk open, of course. So I'm just going to be putting it on like so, making sure the gap is nice and unlaced, and I'm going to fasten my busk in front. There we go. Now, making sure everything sits approximately the way I want it, I will turn and try to find those loop holes in the lacing that should be here somewhere. Yes, here they are. And now I'm just going to pull this a bit tighter. And I'm also going to cross so as not to pull the entire corset apart. The zip ties are not that strong at the back, so if I wanted to have a really strong corset, I would have used steel boning just at the back, so the lacing is secured. And then I'm just going to bring the laces to the front and just tie them like so. And here we have the corset. And now let's put on the corset cover as well. So here I have my corset cover, just a very thin little vest, tank top if you will, that I'm just going to put on over my corset. And then we're just going to simply button it up. Like so. Let me put on a petticoat as well so you can see the entire effect when the corset is fully covered. And here we have all the Victorian underwear that we need. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like and also to subscribe to my channel, as I will be constructing an 1890s walking suit in the near future,